Welcome to Joe's Astrology. This is the birth chart for Ashton Kutcher. He's a Gemini rising, Sun and Moon in Aquarius. And I have the same moon, 20 degrees Aquarius, and Venus there, but Venus in my chart is at 13 degrees. And this is a lucky guy here. We see the Gemini rising with Jupiter there in the first house, retrograde in Gemini. Now Gemini is in its fall Jupiter's in its fall in Gemini, but with Gemini being in the first house, or can't speak today, Jupiter being in the first house, it is a good place to have Jupiter in an angular house, the first, the fourth, the seventh, the 10th. So it could indicate a fortunate person in some ways. And with it being retrograde in Gemini, there is indication of him redoing something to do with his beliefs, philosophy, travel, higher learning. And I'm going to get into that here in a minute. But let's look at the ruler of the chart is Mercury, and it's in Aquarius in the ninth, and another really good house to have planets. And with Mercury there, Mercury's exalted in Aquarius. He has the Sun, the Moon, and Venus there as well. And this is a social sign. And he has Venus in the 10th on the midheaven. And that's another very fortunate planet in an angle. They're near the midheaven, the house of career. So very fortunate when it comes to career. I bet if we did some more investigation on how his career came together, there would be some interesting stories. And it's also making a trine to that Jupiter as well. And I'm not sure if it's today or tomorrow as I'm doing this video. Coincidentally, Jupiter and Venus are in an exact conjunction in the sky, which this happens often for me. And if you follow astrology and the path of synchronicity, you will have these things happen to you as well. And we see this guy with Aquarius, and we see Uranus in the 6th, the house of work. He's a little bit, you could say he's a little bit odd. We see that he came on the scene as far as when I first saw him, it was That 70s Show. And if you remember, on that show, he was known as a kind of an odd guy, the guy in the hippie guy in the 70s living out of his van. All the other things. I can't remember the show exactly, but he was just the way I'm thinking, the anarchist or the odd guy living in his van. And here we have Uranus in the 6th, Uranus being a planet that can indicate that, and all that Aquarius, which is ruled by Uranus. And that's when he came on the scene, or at least that's when he got famous, or began to get famous. And it's interesting, I just did Mila Kunis' chart, and that I'm not sure if they're still together, but she has a Sagittarius rising, and I really like the oppositions when it comes to that rising there for couples. I've seen it in my life many times over how if let's say you have a Gemini rising and your partner would be the opposite, a Sagittarius rising, as Mila Kunis, as her chart is. And we also see, not only does it have Sagittarius on the 7th house cusp, he has Neptune there as well. So we could see that his girlfriend or wife could potentially be an actress with that Neptune there on the 7th house cusp. See if we can get more information with that. We see that Neptune is making a sextile to the Moon and Venus. And even if we just take the Venus and the Moon there, we can get more information about his wife or his girlfriend. We see there's an opportunity there. And with Venus being involved, she is a very attractive woman. So we see this suggests that his wife would be very attractive. And then add the Moon there as well. I think not much more needs to be said about Mila Kunis regarding that. We could also say that she would be a philosophically inclined. And I'm going to come back to this Jupiter. I don't know them personally, but I'm willing to guess that both of them would have some amazing conversations, deep conversations about life, about the world, and I think that would be a relating point for them. Without looking at the synastry or the composite, just looking at their two charts, you could see that would be possibly a relating point for them to get along with, or maybe they could be getting into a lot of arguments based on beliefs. But if they could get over that, I think, and accept each other, they would definitely have some great discussions. So we see Saturn in Leo. Of course, he's an actor. Leo performance. We see this time and time again with celebrities having Leo involved, and Neptune here. As I said, Neptune is also contacting the moon and the sun in an opportunity aspect. And then obviously it's conjunct the 7th house cusp. He's relating to mostly to actors. I always find it interesting that you think a lot of celebrities have lots of options. You think they could, because they're so popular, and maybe that's the case in some cases, or maybe parts of a life, but they always end up with, I shouldn't say always, but a lot of them end up with other actors and actresses. And I find that interesting because you would think that they could have anyone that they want. And they're just like anybody else. They're relating to people at work, in their own sphere, their own space. And we see his Pluto in the 5th, North Node in the 5th. So he's coming from a place of the 5th house of the creativity and performance and being on stage. But with the North Node there, he's intended to move in that direction as well. As opposed to, we see the South Node in the 11th, and the polarity of Pluto in the 11th. So it's almost as if he's coming from this place of this Leo place, but he's moving into the social sphere and then bringing it back, or even you could say moving into this, the idea of the 11th, the social sphere, groups, certain groups, friends, goals and objectives, and then he's bringing it back to himself and creating. It's like a guy who had a creative soul, and he goes out into the world, learns learns what he needs to learn, etc., and then one day decides, I'm going to make a name for myself, because that's what I intended to do in the first place as a Leo soul. We see the ruler of that North Node being Venus, and the ruler of the South Node being Mars in the 2nd. So we see that idea of everything I'm saying, like making a name for yourself, with Mars in the 2nd, being someone who's a hustler, someone who's climbing the ladder, maybe learning for that, learning and being ambitious for that reason. See, it's in the Pisces decan, again, so that he can be a famous actor. And then the ruler of the North, as I said, Venus, everything coming to fruition with him having good fortune with his career and finally making a name for himself and accomplishing his goal. So this is an interesting chart to look at to see how life works. In when you look at it from a deeper perspective, there is such a thing called value and effort. You might not see it in this life. I think this is a good chart to see where it's important to understand reincarnation, to maybe believe in reincarnation, to at least investigate it, to see if there's some truth there. Because I think looking at this chart, if I was to study astrology for the purpose of learning about reincarnation or to investigate to see if reincarnation was real, this is one of the charts that I think I would look at as an example. I would examine his life a little bit deeper, look at this chart a little bit deeper, and I think it would really bring to light some truth about reincarnation through astrology. So I hope that helps. Stay tuned for more celebrity astrology readings, and I'm going to do Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis' composite and possibly synastry, so stay tuned for that. And I hope you enjoy this mini reading for Ashton Kutcher.